Hello and welcome to the Wrap at NC Capitol. I'm Travis Fain, one of WRAL's state government reporters. I'll be flying solo this week because I'll be honest with you, your NC Capitol team is stretched thin. It was crossover week at the state legislature, which is a deadline of sorts for all sorts of bills to pass. And then, boy, I'll be darned if Republican lawmakers didn't throw a long-anticipated 46-page abortion bill into the mix as well and pass that over a series of 3 days. Last week, there was honestly too much news to wrap, so we didn't do an episode, and then there's even more this week, so apologies for last week. And I'll got to tell you, this week has good train wreck potential, partly because another white man is about to talk about abortion. On Tuesday afternoon, we got word that there would be kind of a hastily organized press conference. It was the rollout of the abortion bill later that night, Tuesday night. The actual bill, again, 46 pages, was made public. By Wednesday, it had passed the North Carolina House. By Thursday, it had passed the North Carolina Senate, all on party line votes. Obviously, Republicans voting for, Democrats against. The bill went through a single joint committee before hitting the floors, which is exceedingly unusual. Even sponsors struggled at times to explain some of the finer details and fairly important details. No amendments were allowed on the bill because of the way it was structured. It's what's called a conference report. So we're probably going to be learning more about what's in the bill going forward. Wouldn't be surprised if changes were needed at some point and got stuck in what we call a technical corrections bill that happens every session with little minor tweaks on things, and sometimes not so minor. But here's what the bill, it's Senate Bill 20. The abortion bill is Senate Bill 20. Here's what it does in broad strokes. It takes the current North Carolina ban on abortions after 20 weeks, general ban with exceptions. It takes that back to 12 weeks. So abortion would generally be illegal in this state after 12 weeks pregnancy, with an exception. The threshold moves to 20 weeks in cases of rape or incest, to 24 weeks when there are fetal abnormalities, and then the entire pregnancy if the doctor declares a medical emergency. But it's got a lot of other things in it, too, things that opponents say is going to make it a lot harder, for poor people at least, to actually get an abortion, the logistics of it, a lot of new reporting requirements for doctors. The Medical Society and a number of other doctors' groups oppose this bill. There is, right now, to get an abortion in North Carolina, you have to have at least a phone call with a doctor 72 hours before you go and visit and have the procedure done. That becomes in person under this bill. So 72 hours before an abortion, you would have to have an in-person visit with your doctor. A drug-induced abortion where you take mifepristone is the most common, I believe, drug. That has to be, the first pill at least, has to be given by the doctor in person. So it can't be mailed to you. You have to be at a doctor's office and take it. And then the bill also includes a follow-up visit in person. That doesn't seem to be absolutely required, but it says the doctor is supposed to make every effort to make sure that the woman getting the abortion is there. So you're talking 3 visits spaced out over, a number of days or more than a week. Difficult for people who don't have money to travel, maybe have a full-time job, an hourly job, maybe have other children that they need to be watching out for, don't have anybody to keep. There are only 14 abortion clinics in North Carolina. There are also quite a few counties without hospitals. Abortions can also be performed at hospitals. So the question is, how will someone who cannot afford to travel or to take time off work actually get an abortion here? I don't think there's any doubt that this will impact poor people far, far more than wealthy people. Also, after 12 weeks, any abortion must be done in a hospital, which is more expensive. Abortion clinics would have a bunch of new rules, which I'm still a little iffy on, to be honest. This is a section of the bill that either I've misread or it is being misdescribed by bill sponsors. But Planned Parenthood says that none of its 6 abortion clinics, they have 6 of the 14 in the state, meet the potential, I'm going to use the word potential, licensing requirements here. But it appears to me that those licensing requirements are going to be written in the future by a commission that is appointed by the governor at the moment, at least. And the idea is to bring those standards up, Republican sponsors of the bill say, to the standards of an ambulatory surgery center, which again, Planned Parenthood says none of its 6 clinics meet now. There was a lot of powerful debate in the Senate Thursday. Senator Amy Galey walked through the realization she had that led her to go from pro-choice to pro-life. Republicans repeatedly push back on the idea that abortion is health care, which is something you'll hear Democrats say quite often. Republicans saying there are 2 patients involved in every abortion, and an abortion is only successful if one of them dies. I think, though, what struck me the most were the comments from black women in the Senate. It's no secret that race and income correlate strongly in our society, and there could be little doubt that these new in-person consultation requirements will impact poor people, like I said, more than wealthy people. And so the black women of the North Carolina Senate stood repeatedly to point out that black mothers have much higher maternal death rates in this country and in this state than white mothers. Senator Val Applewhite talked about what she believed to be an attempted rape that she evaded when she was younger and in the military, in the Air Force. She's, I think, a 20-year Air Force veteran. And she talked about how service women do not always feel comfortable reporting sexual assaults. I think it's been well documented the trouble we have in our military apparatus in the way it treats women who report a sexual assault. And so it was very emotional as Senator Applewhite described the concerns that a woman in the military, and we hold ourselves out obviously as an extremely military-friendly state, the concerns that a woman might have if she became pregnant because of a sexual assault. Other speeches from Gladys Robinson, Sidney Batch, Natalie Murdoch, Candy Smith, DeAndrea Salvador, Joyce Waddell, some powerful speeches. I hope we'll be able to offer some of that sound in another format. There was a lot of good stuff in there. I can't really do it justice here, but I certainly recommend if you didn't spend some time Thursday listening to the Senate debate, that you do so. Every Senate Democrat spoke, man and woman. They all made, or many of them made, multiple procedural efforts to delay the vote. I mean, it was a filibuster. That's what it was. Debate stretched for much of the day. Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger's office said it was the longest Senate floor debate in a decade. But at the end of the day, of course, the bill passed on party lines. It had passed the House the day before along party lines. And so the bill has passed the House and the Senate. The governor now has 10 days to veto it. I'm not privy to his thinking, but my colleague Laura Leslie speculated yesterday that he'd take that full 10 days, let the pressure mount on a handful of Republicans that he'd like to see switch their votes and back the veto. That makes sense. In a video message on the bill Thursday, the governor called out Senator Michael Lee, Representative John Bradford, Representative Ted Davis, and Representative Tricia Cotham, who, of course, Cotham was a Democrat up until about a month ago. Now she's a Republican. Each of these folks campaigned to one extent or another on a promise not to restrict abortion much further in this state. I mean, it would take a little more analysis to determine for each of those 4 lawmakers how their campaign rhetoric fits against the scope of this bill. I'm not going to try to do that here. But Cotham in particular has been passionate in the past about abortion rights, seems to have pulled a 180 here because she is now voting for this Republican abortion bill. Texted each of these lawmakers after the governor's remarks since he called them out. Cotham, Bradford, Lee, they did not respond. Representative Ted Davis declined comment. Now, Davis is particularly interesting. He is in maybe the swingiest House district in North Carolina, down in Wilmington. It's probably only going to elect a moderate Republican, although it will be redrawn going forward. We can talk about redistricting in a minute because there's news on that too. But for now, Davis is in this swing district, and Republicans need his vote to overturn the governor's veto, unless they're able to pull off a Democrat or two, which would be surprising at this point, even though there's some Democrats in the House who in the past have been willing to vote for some abortion restrictions. And Speaker of the House Tim Moore said, well, I've had conversations with a couple of Democrats who said if they could vote their conscience, they would have voted for this bill, but none did. So Davis was not present for the abortion vote. He left the chamber when it was time for the House to vote. So that means he didn't have to vote yes or no, but it also means that it changes the math if he does that again when it comes time to override the governor's veto. The Republicans will need him there. The Republicans will need him voting yes in order to override the governor's veto in the House. So what is he going to do? I have no doubt the pressure coming down on him over the next 10 days or so will be quite heavy. Speaker of the House Tim Moore told some of my colleagues after Wednesday night's House vote on the abortion bill that Republicans have the votes they need to overturn. He pretty much said it's a done deal, but we do have miles to go before we sleep on that. There's also the question of whether more abortion legislation might be coming, like an incremental approach to strengthening these rules further than this bill goes. The speaker, again, and thanks to Mary Helen Jones from Spectrum News for posting this video because I was not there for this. The speaker said nothing else is coming this biennium, the 2-year legislative session. Nothing else is coming, which means through the end of 2024. I don't have to tell y'all that after 2024, I mean, that's an open question. No General Assembly is going to promise things that another General Assembly is going to do. We will have General Assembly elections in November of 2024. We will have a governor's election in 2024. Abortion will be a big, big issue in those races. Speaking of that, fascinating that Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, front runner for the 2024 nomination for governor on the Republican side, sounds like he doesn't want to engage on this bill. It's not unusual for a lieutenant governor to not really to take a hands-off approach as legislation is fashioned, and that seems to be the case here. Berger, the Senate Republican leader, told me that the lieutenant governor wasn't involved in negotiations on the bill, told me that Robinson, to his knowledge at least, didn't see the bill before it was rolling out Tuesday. But what is unusual is the lieutenant governor didn't put out a statement about the bill, even though he has been passionately pro-life. It's a big part of what I would call his gubernatorial platform and his persona, despite the fact that he has acknowledged publicly that he paid for an abortion in 1989 for his, I believe, then girlfriend, certainly now wife. He says he regrets that and that was part of the journey, his pro-life, journey to becoming so adamantly pro-life. I mean, he has indicated that he would sign bills that outlaw abortion, period, more or less. So weird that there have been no statements from him on this bill. Have to assume that he supports it and would support further abortion restrictions if elected governor. WFAE called up with the lieutenant governor in person Thursday in Charlotte, and the lieutenant governor said, well, I don't want to talk about abortion. I'm tired of talking about that, which is flabbergasting might be too strong a word, but I mean, that's not really how this works. The lieutenant governor is expected, particularly as he runs for governor, to weigh in on issues before the state legislature, and this is the biggest one right now. Treasurer Dale Folwell, a Republican who is also running for governor, said he supports the bill, said he would sign it if he was governor, said he's pro-life today, tomorrow, in the future. On the Democratic side, no surprise, but Attorney General Josh Stein was quite vocal in his opposition to the bill, kind of along the lines, really totally along the lines of what you've heard from legislative Democrats, that this rolls back women's rights in North Carolina. And that's where we kind of are on abortion right now. This bill is likely to become law, but we don't know that yet. Like I said, the governor has 10 days, and then we'll see what happens. The Senate will get the first crack at overriding. I fully expect them to do so. Republicans have the margin there to where that is essentially a fait accompli. The House, again, the Speaker of the House said, hey, we've got the votes, but it is an open question. We'll see what happens there. I'm not going to hit too many other topics this week. It's just hard to drink from the fire hose, but I will mention a few. We had another kind of transgender bill move this week, House Bill 808. So that started life as a bill that would have banned a long list of gender-affirming care, as it's called these days, including puberty blockers, hormone therapy in minors. The bill deals only with people who are under the age of 18. So that language was cut out, the puberty blockers and the hormone therapy. And now the bill is simply limited to banning surgical procedures for transgender minors, transgender people under the age of 18. So that much less controversial, but still opposed by many in the transgender community. That bill that moved through committee with no public comment, little committee discussion, quick vote on this bill. And that's been a theme this session. I mean, you heard me mention earlier the abortion bill moved through a single committee in two chambers and then was on the floor. It passed less than 48 hours after, and again, it's a 46-page, really complex bill. It passed both chambers within 48 hours of being publicly available so people could read. I was in committee, I want to say last week, when a 19-page Department of Transportation bill moved through. It had widespread support, but I had questions about it, and I would be shocked to find that everyone who voted for it understood it. There was no section-by-section discussion of the bill. Usually with a bill that has a lot of sections, the sponsor will at least say, Section 1 does this, Section 2 does this, Section 3 does this. That didn't happen on that bill. There was a House Health Committee last week where, because they had 8, some of them complex bills to hear in 50 minutes, lawmakers even were limited to one question per person. So not only was there no public comment on any of the bills, lawmakers themselves could only ask one question each per bill. None of this is normal, y'all. None of this is normal. You used to be able to kind of attend a committee meeting and, based on discussion and debate, generally understand the bill as a member of the public, or more to the point for me, as a member of the press tasked with explaining these things to the public. But this year, the legislature has decided to shorten its schedule. They don't seem to be shortening or lessening the workload. And so it's just this constant churn that makes it very difficult to keep up with things, explain them to the public, and follow it. I'll let you all decide whether or not that is a feature or a bug, whether or not it might be purposeful. Concealed carry. So there was a gun bill that was going to be a major gun bill on the House calendar earlier this week. I want to say Wednesday night as they were doing the abortion bill. And it's called constitutional concealed carry. Basically, the idea is, hey, the Constitution says that if I have a gun, legally can carry that concealed. I should not have to get a permit from my local sheriff, as I do now, generally speaking, to carry concealed. Just everybody should be able to do that. That bill seemed like it was going to move. It had moved through a couple of House committees this week, and then it got pulled from the House calendar. Sounds like when the bill got caucused, there were enough misgivings among House Republicans to at least delay it. And given that crossover just happened, there are ways around crossover, as we all know. It's not a strict deadline, but it looks like that bill may not be coming back this year. Senate in the Senate, it didn't have good chances anyway. Senate Pro Tem Phil Berger told reporters that he didn't think they needed to move on that bill this year. The legislature has already, over the governor's veto, ended the pistol permit system. So concealed carry permit is one thing. Used to be, up until a few weeks ago in North Carolina, you, to buy a handgun, had to get a pistol permit, go to your sheriff, do the background check there, as opposed to doing it in the gun store where you still have to do a background check. But basically, your sheriff had to sign off on you having a handgun as opposed to a long gun, as opposed to a rifle. That has been dropped. That was a long time push for gun rights advocates, and basically Senator Berger saying, yeah, we've done enough on guns this year. We're going to stand pat and go forward. We'll see if we come back to this. So concealed carry, that bill does not look like it's going to happen. I'm recording this on Friday, and the governor has recently announced that he'll let SB 157 become law without his signature. It's a bill that deals with the length of time it takes teenagers to get a driver's license, how much practice they need first, basically. Bill had widespread support in the legislature. Governor said he's concerned that it would make roads less safe, but it's going to become law. He's just not going to sign it. He can let things become law without signing them if he simply doesn't act. There is a bunch more that we would normally get to on the wrap, because we call it the wrap. We talk about everything that we can, but I just haven't been able to get it all in. I do want to mention quickly that partisan gerrymandering is legal in North Carolina again. Last Friday, and this is one of the reasons we didn't do the wrap last Friday, because we were busy dealing with this, the state Supreme Court came down with 3 voting rights decisions. One says voter ID is constitutional. One deals with the timing of when felons would have their voting rights restored. And probably the biggest one, the one with the most attention, is the partisan gerrymandering decision. The now Republican majority state Supreme Court said the previous Democratic majority on the state Supreme Court, which decided last year in 2022 that partisan gerrymandering violated the state constitution, said, nah, they were wrong. Partisan gerrymandering is not the court's responsibility to police this. Basically, the legislature can redistrict however they want. Now, there are still some rules, particularly at the federal level, that deal with race and how you do or do not, how you draw election lines and how it might affect minority voters. This is about partisan gerrymandering, so drawing a line to help Republicans or drawing a line to help Democrats. That partisan gerrymandering is fine according to the courts. And so the bottom line here is when the House and Senate gather probably in September or sometime late summer, early fall, to redraw congressional districts, redraw House districts, redraw state Senate districts, they are not going to have near as many concerns about lawsuits being filed to stop them. Your legislature and your congressional district are about to get more Republican. That seems to be the bottom line there, which is going to play into every other issue down at the General Assembly up to and including abortion, because redistricting is a foundational issue for our legislative system of government. That's about it. The House will not be taking any votes next week. They're going to kind of take a little break here. The Senate sounds like a light schedule, probably some committee work, but no floor votes likely until maybe Thursday is the word I'm hearing. That's not gospel, but looks like it's going to be a light week. The Senate is still trying to put the finishing touches on its budget. We expect the Senate budget proposal to come forward the week of May 15th, maybe the Tuesday of that week. So I think that would be the 16th. But so look for the Senate budget not next week, but the week after that. Maybe a wrap next week. I don't know. But definitely we will try to keep you informed as best we can at WRAL.com and nccapital.com. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.